Hi friends, today we are going to discuss the articles from the Hindu, Indian Express and Mint. I am covering only important articles and also I am clubbing many articles from the previous days and giving you a holistic picture. So don't worry that some of the articles may be missed out. I am assuring you that all the articles will be covered and all the news items will be covered. Today we are going to discuss the issues related to MSME classification, plight of the domestic workers, indirect tax structure complications, and India's interests in West Asia. Please pause for a moment and check the questions. You should be able to answer these questions at the end of the video. First, with respect to vulnerability of domestic workers, the author has reported the findings of a survey which has been conducted in Jaipur. As per the survey, 89% of the survey respondents were not paid in April and also in May. And 44% of the women domestic workers had to borrow money to fulfill their daily and monthly needs. 25% of them were asked not to return to work. So loss of income and also loss of employment for a good amount of duration. This means their economic condition has deteriorated. Now some of them don't even have jobs to recover from that economic deterioration. So what is the way forward? Government has to register these domestic workers first and provide them social security benefits and health insurance, especially in the context of COVID-19. I will discuss domestic workers issues in detail in future. I think Indian government earlier constituted a committee to look into the plight of the domestic workers before COVID-19. I will collect the data and discuss them in detail in future videos. Secondly, I told that we are going to discuss the MSME classification issue. Basically, the issue is reported in the Live Mint article. The authors say that the new changes is good, but they are falling short of achieving the intended outcomes. The arguments I will present in the next few minutes, but before proceeding to that, let us revise the new definitions again, which we have discussed already in one of the newspaper analysis videos. The new definitions for MSME main changes is earlier there were only investment limits, but now sales turnover criteria was also added. If you see here, these are the new sales turnover limits for the micro, small and medium. Okay. Then earlier there was a distinction between manufacturing and service sector, micro, small and medium enterprises. Now that distinction has been abolished. Also, the thresholds were increased for the investment limits to reflect the inflation and other things. So the argument put forward by the authors is it is good that government has introduced the sales turnover limit, but the point is they have made it redundant. Why it is called redundant? Because if the firm crosses even just the investment limit, they will slip into the next category. In that case, the sales turnover limit purpose is not fulfilled. But some people may argue that assume that the investment limit is less than 1 crore in micro category, but the sales turnover limit is 6 crore. If the sales turnover limit is 6 crore, then if the sales turnover limit is not specified as part of the criteria, micro will remain as micro. So to avoid that, government has introduced the sales turnover limit. But this argument doesn't hold water, mainly because in the available data, if we observe the turnover to investment ratio, it is always around 1 to 1.2. That means if investment limit is 1 crore, then sales turnover, I mean if the investment by the firm is 1 crore, not limit, then the sales turnover is also around 1 crore or 1.2 crore. Okay. In that scenario, with less than 1 crore investment, it is highly impossible to achieve the sales turnover of around 6 crores. So ultimately, the introduction of sales turnover and keeping it as a R criteria makes it redundant. So what happens is, because of this thing, the micro entrepreneurs, the micro firms entrepreneurs may not invest more to get the higher sales turnover, because if they invest more they will fall into the small category, they will not get all the benefits they were earlier getting in the micro entrepreneurship category. Okay, so but what other countries have done was, in European Union they have adopted mix of sales turnover and employment criteria. It is and, not or. Whereas in US they have employed only employment ad stick. In Japan they have employed investment and employment criteria. So the authors finally suggested that India can follow the Japan's model, and instead of employment you can follow investment and sales turnover instead of investment or sales turnover criteria. Because if when you follow investment and sales turnover criteria, the entrepreneurs will increase their investment limit to increase the sales turnover, thereby the firm will go on the growth trajectory. When the firm will go on growth trajectory, there will be a possibility of more employment creation, which is much needed in the present economic slowdown scenario. That is the argument. Okay, of course, authors have also pointed one positive thing about the change. India has done well by eliminating the distinction between manufacturing and services. It brings uniformity and it reduces the unnecessary classification and extra complications. It improves the ease of doing business. Now I am moving to the GST indirect tax related issue. It is in the context of recent ruling by the Advanced Ruling Authority in Karnataka, saying that parota, which is preserved or stored and has a shelf life of around 3 to 7 days, is different from a chapati which can be consumed immediately, for the purpose of levying GST taxes. So the distinction here, we are talking in terms of GST tax. Okay, that you have to keep in mind. So this kind of classification is making things complicated as per the author. The arguments provided by the author is, rationale behind shifting to GST is fewer tax slabs, thereby problems of classification will be overcome. But if you see the above example, as per the author, the tax is neither good nor simple. Instead, the plethora of tax rates have been continuing, so the reform's purpose is not served. And because of this confusion, businesses need clarification. When clear rules are not spelled out, bureaucratic discretion dominates, which is breeding ground for the corruption. But the counter arguments provided by the tax officials is, it is not unique to India. The same practice has been followed in other countries also. Frozen parota is preserved, sealed, packed and branded. It is not a staple item like roti or chapati. Okay, they have also provided another argument saying that, for example, if you take milk is normally tax free, but if the same milk is packed in Tetra Pak, it is taxed at 5%, but if the milk is condensed, then it is taxed at 12%. One more argument mainly is, all these packed products and branded products are from the FMCG companies, that means consumer goods companies. They are belonging to organized segment of the processed food industry, and they are making good profits by selling their products at higher rates. Hence these products are eligible for the higher taxation as per the tax officials. So you have the arguments and counter arguments, and of course by taking both of them you can ask for the measures where GST Council can come up with clear guidelines which leaves less scope for the bureaucratic discretion. Okay, the another article, I have combined the articles from the Hindu newspaper in the previous days and today's article. Okay, few days back our former Vice President Mr. Hamid Ansari has written an article saying that India should advocate for West Asia led, West Asia owned and West Asia controlled cooperative security, because that is a good kind of security architecture which is in the interest of India. Then today's article says that to build the self-reliant India, we need investments from the West Asia. Also, we need to re-employ the people who are reverse migrating from West Asia to India. In this context, both of the articles, irrespective of that security dimension in the previous article, even that article has quoted important economic data which can be used for our answer. Okay. First, I will discuss the existing scenario and then what else can be done. The existing scenario is bilateral trade is around $121 billion with West Asia for the India, and we receive remittances of $49 billion from West Asia. It is more than 50% because India actually receives 80%, $80 billion remittances annually. $49 billion is more than 50% of the $80 billion. Okay, that shows the importance of the remittances from West Asia, and we have a workforce of over 9 million there. So that is why West Asia is important to us. And also just GCC, West Asia is different from GCC because GCC excludes Iran. West Asia includes Iran. GCC suppliers account for around 34% of our crude imports, and national oil companies in Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi are partners in our Ratnagiri oil refinery. Okay, that investment helped us in improving the Ratnagiri oil refinery. And in addition, Saudi Aramco is reported to take a 20% stake in Reliance Oil to Chemicals business. This will bring not only investment, this will improve the investment sentiment on India's business. Thereby other investors will also invest. And moreover, diaspora in West Asia, diaspora is 3.4 million Indians. Oh, I am sorry. This diaspora is related to UAE. Only in UAE, 3.4 million Indians are there, and UAE is third biggest trading partner with India after US and China. And from UAE alone, we receive $19 billion remittances. So this particular data can be quoted in the context of India-UAE relations. Okay, this is the available data. You need to by heart them. Okay, then what more steps we need to take is we need to expedite the land acquisition in Maharashtra for $50 billion mega refinery project. Then because that will improve the ease of doing business. Then Saudi Aramco and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, they want to invest $25 billion. And moreover, we have to fast track the resolution of endless litigation. This will also improve the ease of doing business. The investors will not be worried about the endless litigation. So sale of major stake of Mumbai Airport to consortium including UAE Sovereign Fund and Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. So if we fast track the resolution of that endless litigation, then we can go ahead with this sale of major stake. So what can be the conclusion? India needs to act on priority basis as part of India's Look West policy. Thank you.